broadcast, and I've also got a recording going on with the P1000. It's pretty windy and chilly right now, and I wanted to go ahead and put a live feed on this, as well as what I'm going to do is zoom in on the moon right now, so you can take a look at what that looks like. So now I'm going to freehand this and zoom in on the moon with the P1000. You might find it interesting. The moon is an odd shape. It's not a sphere. So the biblical proclamation and the observable evidence is the sun, moon, and stars move above the stationary and level Earth. There would be no level anywhere on a spinning water ball hurling through space. So one of the serious evidences that I would like you to consider, can you actually feel any movement of the Earth at all? Seriously. Apparently, according to the science fiction that we're being told about living on a globe and going to Mars and the moon, is that we're rotating at the equator over 1,038 miles an hour in an easterly direction. Yet we can't feel the movement. If you can, seek immediate help. So this is the Cherry Grove Fishing Pier at the Prince Resort in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I posted a video this morning, once again, put it up towards the top. It says it's at the South Pole, and yet the Aurora Borealis is showing up very beautifully there. So do we know it's the South Pole because there's a sign that says so? It's an exercise in critical thinking. To be intellectually honest, we don't know what we don't know. That's a reality of that. Because we've got an offshore breeze, it's blowing the humidity away. Do you know how much a gallon of water weighs? It depends on temperature. The volume and density of water changes with temperature sufficiently that we've got evaporation, condensation, and precipitation in all its forms. This is low tide here right now. What causes the tides? Well, it could be expansion and contraction of water. Could also be the fountains of the deep. I know that God opened them up in the account in Genesis for the great flood. He may have closed them up. How could we know any different? He also opened up the windows of heaven. It's a lot of water that can come through big openings. We're in like a terrarium. The firmament is the structure above this stationary and level Earth. So I'm not using any green screen. This is right here at the beach. This is sea level. So there's a lot of people lying about the world that we live in. And by irony, many of them, in paradox, many of them don't know they're lying. They're just simply passing on information that they believe to be true and accurate. You can see the beautiful reflections there. There's a little bit of texture, a little bit of slope to the beach. Otherwise, the water would be deeper here. So even though we've got wind, I can show you zoomed in on these reflections there. I'll do it with the P1000. If you're watching a non-magnified view, you may want to come back and check out the zoomed in view. There's probably about a 10-mile-an-hour breeze right now out of the northeast. And I'm going to zoom in on the Myrtle Beach skyline. We've got a delay in the tidal activity over there, which is about 25 to 30 miles away, depending on where we're looking. The pier faces directly south. One of the reasons why I don't go out on the pier in the winter in the morning for a sunrise, it's not open. It doesn't open till 8 o'clock. Here we can see the puddles. Those are all evidences. We can see the aerodynamics, the fluid dynamics, the interaction between the wind and the water. That's empirical, repeatable, observable evidence. It's just the way it actually is. As I move in a little bit now, maybe you can hear it get quieter and see the water get more calm, get more still. Now, in the summer, the sun comes up in the middle of the view over there and then sets in the middle of the view over there. I've got video evidence of it. Now today, the sun is going to come up in the middle of the view right over there and follow a path and land in the middle of the view there. Two distinct movements. It's not a uniform rotation. If you've got a particular belief on what you believe the flat earth model is, or the reality of the world that we live in, you may or may not be correct. How would I know? I don't know what you actually believe. That's the reality of that. And is what you believe true and real, or is it something else? The humidity is really low right now also. Those birds can tell he's got a little bit of food with him. Imagine that. They're pretty smart. That's Tim from New York. They can see you're holding some food, Tim. That's cool. So we're roughly 5 minutes from the sun appearing right now. And I'm going to zoom in on the clouds a bit so that you can see how it looks right there. How do we know what's true? How do we know the actual distance between the continents that Google Earth maps out? Do we know that's real? Accurate? Could the people that are going on their Antarctic trip actually have gone to the North Pole? I mean, that sign, it's a beautiful time-lapse video. At one point, there's a lot of either their jets or wandering stars flying back and forth, lots of them. It's about a 5-minute video. It's the Antarctic display there, supposedly. How would I know any different? There are laws of perspective that come into play as to why we can't see other continents from here. You can set a camera lens right down on a hard surface that's known to be flat and level and walk away, and it'll look like the person is walking into the concrete. You can check it out. Check it out. Perspective, laws of perspective. So when people look into questioning the reality of the world that we live in, and well, I should say when I did, and I found out that NASA was lying about trips to the moon and astronomical projections of the supposed movement of the celestial bodies. Well, Joshua chapter 10, God stopped the sun from moving to give victory, sun and the moon from moving, so that Joshua could have victory in a battle. And then they started moving again. But wait, Neil deGrasse Tyson says that the sun's in the center and the earth and the moon move. Who are you going to trust, God or Neil deGrasse Tyson? Yeah, I don't trust Neil or Bill Nye or these scientific priests of a godless cosmic Big Bang. They've got a God, all right. It's just not the biblical creator. So Max Egan went ahead and told us that we live on a flat plane and a globe, depending on what we want to believe. You can see his video on that. Now, I think he did a good job of posting on the fires in Australia and showing the evidence of weather modification, weather wars, and also the damming up and creating because of drought, because of holding water back that should have been allowed to irrigate lands that previously were wetlands. Well, it's either a globe or a level stationary plane. I don't believe it can be both. It's not a drive-through, choose your own, like a drive-through burger joint where you get to choose your own toppings and what you want it to be like. Yeah, I would like to do my own thing and believe whatever I want to believe. You can have it your way. Yeah. Well, I would rather know the truth about it. I ask God to, the creator of this world, the living word, the living water, the great I am, the Alpha and Omega, to give me his Holy Spirit and to know the truth about the world that we live in. I got way more than I bargained for. So if you're watching a non-magnified version, I'm zoomed in really close with the P1000. I'll back out a little bit. Just zooming in on the ball or on the sun itself is not the main event as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to back way on out and show you how that's just a little localized light source. In a little bit, when it gets up a little bit higher, it'll bounce off of the windows over there in Myrtle Beach. I'll show you some of that. It's clear enough to cause that to happen. See the uniform reflections of the water there around the pilings, the piers. And also want to go out here a little bit and show you the moon as well. Notice the divots in the moon, the craters, symmetry. On my Facebook photo album, I've got many photos that show that the Earth is, or the moon is not a sphere. Look at the optical refraction and the appearance of the sun right there. I've got many videos that give a very different perspective of what the sun looks like. If you hashtag local sun, which I will put on this video again, you can see it. It's like a laser beam shooting across the water and hitting the wet sand right there. You can maybe see that. Now I'm seeing the sun hitting the buildings over there. Can zoom in on that and show you. Notice all the level water next to the piers. And this is the body of water that covers the face of the stationary and level Earth. I'm going to go ahead and secure that. There's a term called confirmation bias where people find what they're looking for to prove what their preferred belief is. Another way to go about that is to seek the truth with all your heart because it matters for eternity. If you're believing that we live in a godless cosmic big bang and you can do your own thing, and if there is a God, he'll just let you into heaven, I would say, well, that's not the biblical proclamation. So, like, for example, when Max Egan or other people talk about what they believe we're living in, some kind of a matrix, a simulation, a computer programmed reality, well, the truth is going to matter for sure for eternity. And I believe God's grace is required to love and believe the truth, let alone find it. How will you know it when it's right in front of you? Pride is a very powerful catalyst for deception. Apparently, many people believe the lie they want to believe. It's unfortunate. I'll do my best to help raise awareness to the reality of the world that we live in. Food for thought, I believe, is truthful information as well as healthy nutrition to help the brain and body to function properly, including the proper digestive function to draw the nutrients out of the food that we eat, including healthy water without fluoride, chlorine, and other people's prescriptions. Water's been tested in municipalities that show there's a lot of contamination in the drinking water. So even if you put a highly aggressive purified water in a cheap plastic, you're going to be drinking plastic molecules. It draws the toxins out of the plastics. So I'm bathing in the highly purified water and drinking it. I like to put it in the sun. That's where I found out how the volume and density of water changed. I would fill it up to the top, and then you can't compress water. And what happens is the water expands, comes out over the top of the jug, and then when it cools off, it leaves an airspace in there. By the way, we're at sea level, and we live in a pressurized atmosphere. You can't have a pressurized atmosphere without a container. It's just the reality of that. You can explore it if you want. So as we're told, gravity is a lie. Centripetal force is part of the Newtonian physics, and that supposedly makes all this water you're looking at conform to a ball. However, that only happens in the imagination. The horizon is horizontal. That's the x-axis from left to right. So I can zoom in a long way and show you things. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on the breakwater down there where the ships go in and out. And you'll be able to see a little bit of how that works if you care to. Need to come back and watch it with the other video if you don't have the magnified version. I can assure you that there's bottoms of those markers there. It's just can't see them because of the refraction. Earlier this week, couldn't even see the end of the pier because of the fog that was here. That's the moisture evaporating and condensing. Then the light bounces off of that and impairs visibility. So real science is not afraid of investigation, and it's testable and repeatable observations. There will be a new heaven and a new earth, and it's not going to have all the sin and Satan's children and fallen angels in it. It's going to be God's children, the elect angels, God Himself, who now lives in and through me, and all of His children that are actually born again. What's interesting about that is some of God's children haven't even been born the first time yet. We're eternal beings having a temporary human experience. At some point in the human experience, the child of God will absolutely be born again. Roughly 7 people per second, over 100 million people worldwide, no longer have their human physiology function. About half of those are abortions, human sacrifice. It's been going on for a long time. Satan has a bloodlust, and the human nature is selfish. So women that believe it's their right to choose whether or not to kill their child, I'm sorry to say it's murder, even though it may be legal in areas of the world. Intentionally ending another human being's life, by definition, is murder. Now, God's grace is sufficient to forgive murderers, liars, thieves, all of that. However, to actually have that forgiveness, the individual needs to be born again. So I'm a biblical creationist that believes in the sovereignty of God, and that that nothing happens in this world that He either doesn't cause or allow. So the names of all of God's children were written in the Lamb's Book of Life before the foundation of the world. The change in me uh, when I was born again was so significant. I wanted to know why the delay. I thought I was born again in 1982 until I actually was in 2014 on Reformation Day or Halloween as the blood drinking, human sacrificing Satanists sweeten up the deal with candy distribution and people pretending to be what they're not, who they're not. That pretending, that hypocrisy is still going on. People pretending to be children of God and passing the plate for you to pay their salary and pay for the rent that they're holding services in. Some of those services may be promoting a biblical perspective on God, some of them may not be. There's a lot of charlatans, snake oil salesmen, liars, and thieves, adulterers, murderers that are promoting another gospel as well. So there's a lot of false religion. It's unbiblical. So whenever people are saying whatever it is about whatever topic, is it biblical? Is it true? I believe the truth is not based on popular opinion. It's certainly not popular and it's definitely not an opinion. God determines what the truth is, what the reality is. His character is evident within this creation. The fact that it's stationary, that it doesn't move, and that we can observe the sun, moon, and stars moving above this stationary and level earth. That's just the way it is, whether you like it and or agree with it or not. So I create content to speak to issues that I believe need to be addressed, beneficial to consider. Is it true? Whatever it is that you want to know about, and can you confirm it? Do you have a way that you can verify and prove what you believe to be true? That's the question. Second Thessalonians chapter 2 says to everybody forever, they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion. Seek the truth with all your heart because it matters for eternity. This is Robert Forsch with the truth.